In the neon-lit corridors of Gyram's bustling spaceport, Jake, a rugged human transporter with a knack for finding trouble, was finalizing his cargo manifest. The port was alive with the usual suspects: traders, travelers, and creatures of every imaginable species. Nearby, his friend and occasional co-pilot, Marcus, was arguing with a vendor over the price of engine parts. "Come on, you know that's too high," Marcus barked, throwing his hands in the air. "I could get it for half that in the outer rim." Jake chuckled, shaking his head as he turned back to his own business. "Focus, Marcus. We're already late," he called over his shoulder, his voice barely rising above the din of the crowd. As Jake hurried back to his ship, a sleek cargo vessel named the Wanderer, he checked off the last items on his list. All that remained was a large, unmarked pod that had been delivered just minutes before departure. With no time to verify its origin, Jake assumed it was part of the scheduled shipment. "Hey, help me with this, will ya?" Jake shouted to Marcus, who had just won his haggling battle. Together, they maneuvered the heavy pod into the cargo hold. "What do you think's in this thing?" Marcus panted, wiping sweat from his brow. "No idea," Jake replied, securing the pod. "But it's probably just another piece of machinery for the Zalorian mines." With everything loaded, Jake and Marcus climbed into the cockpit, ready for takeoff. As the Wanderer lifted off from Gyram, a sudden, shrill alarm echoed through the ship's console. "What now?" Marcus grumbled, tapping at the display. Jake's eyes widened as he read the flashing alert. "It says we've got unauthorized cargo. That pod, it's not on the manifest." Before they could decide on a course of action, the pod's locking mechanism released with a hiss, revealing its contents. A figure stirred inside, a woman with luminous skin and ethereal wings, an alien who could only be described as an angel. "What in the stars?" Marcus gasped, stepping back. The woman sat up, her eyes meeting theirs, fierce and confused. "Where am I?" she demanded in a melodic voice that resonated through the small cabin. "This is a misunderstanding," Jake quickly said, trying to keep the peace. "We didn't know you were in there." "Who are you?" Marcus added, his tone a mix of awe and fear. "I am Seraphina," she said, her gaze piercing. "I demand to be returned to my planet immediately. This must be some human trick." "No trick, I swear," Jake replied, holding up his hands. "We're just transporters. There was a mix-up with the cargo. That's all." Seraphina considered their sincere, if somewhat panicked, faces. "Then correct this mistake. Now." We will," Marcus assured her, looking to Jake for confirmation. Jake nodded, already calculating the quickest route back to Gyram. "We'll sort this out," he promised. "But it might take a little time to turn around." Seraphina settled back into the pod, her eyes never leaving the two men. "Very well. But remember, my people will be looking for me." As Jake set the coordinates for their return, he exchanged a worried glance with Marcus. This accidental abduction could cost them more than just fuel. But with every light year back to Gyram, Jake felt an inexplicable pull towards the mysterious alien who had so unexpectedly entered his life. He knew this journey was about to change everything. As the Wanderer charted its course back to Gyram, the atmosphere inside the ship was thick with tension. Jake piloted the ship with a focused determination, while Marcus kept a watchful eye on the navigation systems. Seraphina, still inside her pod, remained observant but silent, her expression unreadable. The men were unsure how to engage further without escalating the situation. Finally, Marcus broke the silence, his voice a mixture of curiosity and concern. "So, Seraphina, where exactly are you from? We've traveled a lot, but never seen anyone like you." Seraphina glanced towards him, her wings shimmering slightly under the cabin lights. "I am from Celestia, a world far beyond your usual routes," she replied, her tone softening a bit. "We are a peaceful people, dedicated to the harmony of the universe." Jake listened intently, his interest piqued. "Harmony of the universe, huh? That's a noble cause." "Yes, and one we take seriously," Seraphina said, easing into the conversation. "Which is why being transported against my will is so disturbing." "Understandable," Marcus chimed in. "We really didn't know you were on board." It's a mess up with the loading crew back on Gyrum. Jake nodded in agreement. We're just trying to make a living. Never meant to drag anyone into this, especially not someone like you. Serafina observed them, trying to gauge their sincerity. What do you mean? Someone like me? You seem important is all, Jake explained. Your presence here has to mean more than just a simple mix-up. That it does, Serafina acknowledged. In my world, I'm what you might call a guardian. My role is crucial for maintaining the balance of energies across our systems. Marcus raised his eyebrows, impressed. Sounds like a big responsibility. It is, she confirmed, which is why I must return as soon as possible. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden alert from the ship's console. Jake swiftly checked the readings. We've got a small issue with the engine. Nothing major, but I need to go check it out. Need some help? Marcus asked, always ready to lend a hand. Yeah, come on. Let's leave Serafina some space to acclimate, Jake suggested, glancing back at their unexpected guest. As the two men left the cockpit, Serafina allowed herself a moment to absorb her surroundings. Despite the initial shock of her situation, she found herself oddly fascinated by these human men, their straightforward kindness, and their unpolished honesty. In the engine room, Jake and Marcus worked together to troubleshoot the problem. So, what do you make of our celestial stowaway? Jake asked, handing Marcus a tool. She's something else, Marcus replied, adjusting a panel. Not just her looks, but the whole aura about her. It's calming, almost makes you forget she could probably vaporize us with a thought. Jake laughed, wiping his brow. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. I'd rather not be a cosmic ash cloud. Agreed. Let's get her home and chalk this up to one hell of a space tale, Marcus said, clanking the tool against the metal. Back in the cockpit, Jake reset the engine diagnostics while Marcus updated their ETA. The rest of the journey would be crucial in ensuring Serafina's safety and their own. As they settled back into the flight, Jake couldn't help but feel that this encounter, accidental as it was, might just be the start of something beyond their understanding. A realignment of their destiny intertwined with the fate of an alien angel. As the Wanderer continued its journey back to Gyrum, the initial tension that filled the air began to dissipate. Serafina spent more time outside her pod, curious about the ship and its two human occupants. One morning, as Jake prepared a simple breakfast in the small galley, Serafina floated in, her presence nearly ethereal. "What are you making?" she asked, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Just some eggs and toast. Nothing fancy," Jake replied, flipping an egg with a practiced flick of his wrist. "Want to try some? I'm not sure if it's compatible with my physiology, but I appreciate the offer," Serafina said, observing the food. Marcus, who was fixing a cup of coffee, laughed. "Don't worry, we got other stuff too." Jake's just showing off his culinary skills, or lack thereof. Jake shot him a mock glare before turning back to Serafina. "Marcus here is the navigator and mechanic, but I'm the cook by default. How about you? What's typical food like on Celestia?" Serafina smiled, warming up to the conversation. "We consume energy forms, light, sound, and cosmic vibrations. Our sustenance is quite different." "Fascinating," Marcus said, handing her a cup of coffee. "This is just plain old coffee, but it's good for a boost. Safe for humans, at least." Serafina held the cup, feeling the warmth, but not drinking. "I can sense the energy from it. On Celestia, we have something similar, a beverage that heightens our senses and aligns our spirit." Jake served the breakfast on a small table and invited Serafina to sit with them. "So, how do you guys relax or have fun?" he inquired as they all sat down. "We meditate and align with the universe's harmony. We also create music, art, poetry that reflects our connection with the cosmos," Serafina explained, her eyes lighting up. "Sounds peaceful," Marcus noted. "We do some of that too, though it's often more noise than harmony." "Jake here plays guitar?" "Badly." "Hey, I'm not that bad," Jake protested, grinning. "Maybe I can play something for you later. See what you think." "I would like that," Serafina said, her tone sincere. The conversation shifted to music, with Marcus sharing tales of various spaceports and the eclectic sounds they encountered. Music's a universal language, even if we can't understand the lyrics or rhythms of other worlds. "It is indeed," Serafina agreed. It transcends physical form and speaks directly to the soul. Encouraged by her interest, Jake later brought out his guitar, an old, worn instrument that had seen better days. He strummed a few chords, filling the small dining area with a melody that was simple yet soothing. Serafina listened intently, her expression thoughtful. "Your music has warmth, an echo of your spirit. It's quite moving." "Thanks," Jake said, flushing with modest pride. "It's just something I picked up to pass the time between ports." As the day progressed, the trio found more common ground, discussing not just music and food, but also their dreams and fears. Serafina shared stories of Celestia, its luminescent cities and harmonious society, while Jake and Marcus recounted adventures from their travels, the close calls, and the spectacular sights. By the time the Wanderer neared Gyrum, the barriers between them had lessened. They had started as strangers from vastly different worlds, but through sharing their cultures and personal tales, they had woven a tapestry of friendship that none of them had anticipated. This exchange, born from a mishap, had enriched them all, paving the way for understanding and respect. As the Wanderer neared the planet Gyrum, the camaraderie aboard the ship had become unmistakable. Jake, Marcus, and Serafina spent the evening in the observation lounge, watching the stars blaze past the viewport. "So, Serafina, you must have seen a lot of the universe, huh?" Marcus asked, leaning back in his chair with a cup of synthesized nutrient drink they had adapted for her. "Indeed, I have traveled extensively, but always in the service of maintaining harmony," Serafina replied, her gaze fixed on the swirling galaxies outside. "Each system has its unique beauty and challenges." Jake nodded, fiddling with a small gadget on the table. "Makes me realize how little I've seen. There's so much out there." The conversation drifted towards their imminent arrival at Gyrum. "When we land, there will be officials to deal with," Jake mentioned, his tone a mixture of caution and curiosity. "They might not understand how this situation happened." Serafina nodded solemnly. "My arrival back should indeed be handled delicately. There may be repercussions, but I will make sure they know this was not your fault." Marcus looked between them, sensing the growing unease. "Before all that official stuff, why don't we enjoy our last night out here? I mean, it's not every day we get to hang out with an angel." Jake chuckled. "He's right. Let's not worry about tomorrow just yet." Encouraged, Jake fetched his guitar, and the small room filled with the soft strumming of strings. The music was gentle, more reflective this time. Serafina listened, her expression softening. "Your music, it really does transcend the differences between us," she said. "It's quite touching, moved by the moment and the music." Jake set down the guitar and looked at Serafina. "You know, I've been thinking, maybe all this, us meeting, it's not just a random mess-up. Maybe there's something more to it." Serafina met his gaze, her eyes luminous. "In my culture, we believe that nothing happens without reason. Our paths crossed for a purpose." The air in the room thickened with unspoken words and emotions. Jake reached out, tentatively taking Serafina's hand. Her touch was warm, and a current seemed to pass between them. Marcus watched them, a knowing smile playing on his lips. I'll give you two some space," he said, standing up. "Enjoy the view." Once alone, Jake spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to overstep, but I feel something, Serafina. Something strong." Serafina squeezed his hand gently. "I feel it too, Jake. This connection, it's unfamiliar to me, yet profoundly moving." Encouraged, Jake leaned closer, his heart racing. Serafina met him halfway, and their lips touched in a tender kiss. The kiss deepened, filled with the emotions that had been building over their journey. Jake's hands found the soft feathers of Serafina's wings, exploring them with awe and care. The kiss ended, and they pulled back slightly, just enough to see into each other's eyes. "This is new for me," Serafina confessed. "But it feels right." "It does," Jake agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "No matter what happens when we land, I want you to know." "I know," Serafina interrupted, placing a finger on his lips. "Let's just be here now." They sat together, hand in hand, watching the stars. The night passed peacefully, a moment of tranquility before the uncertainties of the day ahead. In that endless expanse of space, Jake and Serafina found a connection that defied their different origins, a testament to the power of unexpected encounters. After their tender moment in the observation lounge, Jake and Serafina returned to the more private confines of the living quarters. The ship was quiet, save for the distant hum of the engines and the occasional soft beep from the console, creating a secluded atmosphere that felt worlds away from any impending troubles. Jake paused at the door to his room, turning to Serafina with a hesitant but earnest look. "Would you like to come in?" he asked, his voice low. Serafina nodded, her expression serene, yet filled with a quiet anticipation. "Yes, I would," she replied softly. As they entered, Jake led her to the small window where the view of the approaching Gyrum was visible, a planet aglow with the light of its twin suns. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" he remarked, gesturing towards the scene outside. "It is," Serafina agreed, standing close to him, her hand finding his. "Much like your world, there is beauty in the vastness." The proximity of their bodies, the warmth shared between their clasped hands, seemed to pull them closer. Jake looked down at Serafina, her face upturned to his. "I've never felt this way before," he admitted. "Not just the attraction, but something deeper, something peaceful." Serafina reached up to touch his cheek, her fingers light against his skin. "Nor have I," she confessed. "To feel such a connection with someone from another world. It's unexpected, yet profoundly moving." Emboldened by her words, Jake leaned down, capturing her lips with his once more. This kiss was deeper than the first, fueled by the raw emotions they had shared and the uncertainties of what lay ahead. Serafina responded with equal fervor, her arms wrapping around his neck, pulling him closer. As the kiss broke, Jake breathed heavily, his forehead resting against hers. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered, not just a request, but a plea. Serafina looked into his eyes, seeing the genuine emotion there, the vulnerability. "I will," she whispered back. They moved together to the bed, their actions slow and deliberate. As they lay down, Jake continued to explore the unique features of Serafina's form. Her wings, especially, were mesmerizing. He traced the contours of her feathers with a gentle curiosity, eliciting a soft sigh from her. Serafina, in turn, explored the texture of his skin, the roughness of his hands that spoke of years handling the controls of his ship, the softness in his eyes when he looked at her. It was an exploration of differences and similarities, of discovering the depths of each other's beings. Their physical union was a continuation of this discovery, a merging of two very different entities into a single, harmonious whole. Serafina trembled under his touch, a response not of fear, but of profound joy and connection. Each movement, each kiss, was a word in the silent language they had created together, a language of touch and emotion that needed no translation. Afterward, they lay together, entwined under the soft cabin lights, the stars continuing their eternal dance outside the window. Neither spoke for a long time, each lost in the reverie of their connection. Finally, Serafina broke the silence. "Whatever happens tomorrow, this night, this connection, it has changed me," she said softly, her voice filled with wonder and a hint of sadness. Jake tightened his hold on her slightly, affirming her words. "Me too," he said. "No matter what, we have tonight. We have this." As they drifted off to sleep, the challenges of the coming day seemed less daunting. Their shared experience a solid, unbreakable foundation that they both knew would endure beyond the confines of time and space. In that quiet room, floating among the stars, Jake and Serafina found a peace that was rare and precious, a fleeting yet eternal testament to the power of human and alien connection. The following morning, Jake woke to find Serafina gazing out of the small window, her wings folded neatly behind her. The light from Gyram's twin suns filtered through the cabin, casting a golden glow around her, making her seem even more otherworldly. "Morning," Jake said, his voice still rough from sleep. She turned to him, a soft smile on her lips. "Good morning, Jake. I hope you rested well. He sat up, running a hand through his hair. Better than I have in a long time. He hesitated before continuing, his voice turning serious. How are you feeling? About everything? Serafina walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, her gaze steady. I am at peace with the choices I have made, but I am concerned about how my people will perceive the situation. Jake nodded. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too. We need to handle this carefully when we land. Before they could discuss further, Marcus's voice crackled over the intercom. Jake, Serafina, we've got a problem. You'd better get up here. Jake quickly dressed and led Serafina to the cockpit, where Marcus was hunched over the controls, his brow furrowed. What's going on? Jake asked, sliding into the co-pilot's seat. We've been flagged, Marcus replied grimly. Gyram's authorities are scanning for unauthorized vessels, and they've sent out a warning about Serafina. Serafina's eyes widened. They know I'm here? Looks like it, Marcus confirmed. We intercepted a transmission. They're treating this like a full-blown abduction. Jake clenched his fists, his voice tight. That's not what happened. We need to explain the truth. Good luck convincing them, Marcus muttered. They're already on high alert. Any false move, and they'll blast us out of the sky. Serafina stepped forward, her tone firm. Let me speak to them. If I explain the situation, they may listen. Jake looked at her, concern etched across his face. Are you sure? They might not give you a chance to explain. I must try, Serafina insisted. If I do nothing, it will only worsen. Marcus hesitated before nodding. I'll patch you through to their frequency. But we need a backup plan in case this goes south. Agreed, Jake said. Marcus, prep the stealth module. If things get hairy, we'll slip past their patrols and find another way to resolve this. As Marcus worked on the controls, Serafina stepped up to the communication panel. Her voice was calm and commanding as she addressed the authorities. This is Serafina of Celestia. I request an open channel to discuss my situation. A pause followed before a cold, authoritative voice replied. Serafina, you are listed as a missing person of high importance. The humans aboard your vessel are considered suspects in your abduction. Stand down and prepare to be boarded. Jake swore under his breath. That's not good. Serafina remained composed. I was not abducted. The humans aboard this vessel are innocent. This was a misunderstanding caused by a cargo mix-up. The voice on the other end was unmoved. We cannot verify your claims at this time. You will comply with our boarding procedures, or we will take action. Marcus muttered, They're not going to back down. Jake stood, his jaw tight. We're not letting them take her like this. Serafina placed a hand on Jake's arm, her gaze steady. I will face them, Jake, but I will not allow harm to come to you or Marcus. If we work together, we can find a way to show them the truth. Marcus glanced at the radar, where a fleet of ships began closing in. We'd better decide fast. They're almost here. Jake took a deep breath, his mind racing. All right, Marcus, keep the stealth module ready. Serafina, stay on the line and keep talking to them. Let's buy ourselves some time. Serafina nodded, her voice resolute. We will resolve this together. As the tension mounted and the authorities closed in, the three worked side by side, their trust in each other the only thing keeping them grounded amidst the chaos. The cockpit of the ship hummed with tension as the Gyram patrol ships closed in. The trio knew they had little time to act, but no one spoke of abandoning Serafina. Her calm demeanor was steadying, but even she couldn't hide the flicker of uncertainty in her luminous eyes. Marcus leaned over the navigation console, his fingers flying across the controls. We got 3 patrols closing in fast. Their scanners will breach our stealth module in less than 10 minutes. Jake clenched his jaw. We need to find a way to make them listen before they open fire. Serafina stood at the center of the cockpit, her presence commanding. Let me address them directly again. I may not convince them immediately, but if I plant doubt about their assumptions, it might buy us time. Marcus muttered under his breath, or they'll just blast us for stalling. Jake turned to Serafina, his voice steady despite the tension. If you think it'll work, I trust you. But you're not doing this alone. Marcus looked up from his console, raising an eyebrow. What's the plan then? Jake pointed to the communication panel. Marcus, open a public broadcast frequency. We're going to make this loud enough for every ship in the patrol to hear it. Marcus hesitated but nodded, flipping switches and rerouting the signal. It's risky, but it might just work. The moment the frequency was live, Serafina stepped forward. Her voice carried a tone of authority that silenced any doubt. To the Gyrum patrol ships and all who are listening, I am Serafina of Celestia, a guardian of my people. The humans aboard this vessel have not harmed me, nor have they acted with malicious intent. The channel buzzed with static before an unfamiliar voice broke in, sharp and dismissive. Serafina, your situation is known. These humans are untrustworthy. Return to us now, and you will be safe. Jake couldn't hold back. He leaned into the microphone, his voice filled with anger and defiance. Untrustworthy? We risked everything to keep her safe when we realized what had happened. If we were the problem, do you think she'd still be here, alive and unharmed? There was a brief silence before the voice returned, colder than before. Your words mean nothing. You have no authority to speak. Marcus jumped in, his tone blunt and no nonsense. And what if she does? You're hearing her right now, aren't you? Maybe start listening to her instead of treating this like some damn crime drama. Serafina placed a calming hand on Jake's shoulder and addressed the broadcast again. My actions are my own. If you value my safety, you will not act rashly. Allow us to return peacefully, and I will explain everything in person. Another voice interrupted the channel, this one more measured. Serafina, if what you say is true, why have you remained with these humans? She didn't hesitate, because they showed me kindness, honesty, and a willingness to understand. They are not what you assume. Jake and Marcus have become my allies, even in these extraordinary circumstances. Jake glanced at her, moved by her words. We're not giving up on this. If you want to come aboard, you come aboard peacefully or not at all. Marcus tapped a final command into the console. Broadcast been wide enough. If they wanted to make a move, they'd have done it by now. Looks like they're hesitating. The comm channel went silent for a few moments, tension hanging in the air. Then, the measured voice returned. Very well, Serafina. We will grant you clearance to approach Gyrum's diplomatic dock. But this matter will be investigated thoroughly. Jake released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. We'll take it. Serafina turned to him, her gaze steady. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Marcus. You stood by me when it mattered most. Marcus shrugged, smirking. We're just stubborn like that. Jake gave her a faint smile. It's not over yet, but we'll get through it. Together, the patrol ships peeled away, allowing the Wanderer a clear path to Gyrum. Despite the unease of what awaited them, the three knew they had done all they could to stay united and make their voices heard. For now, that was enough. As the ship docked at Gyrum's diplomatic terminal, the trio braced themselves for the confrontation ahead. Jake powered down the engines while Marcus scanned the sensors one last time. Serafina adjusted the shimmering folds of her garment, her composure serene but determined. All right, Marcus said, leaning back in his chair. We got a welcoming committee. Looks like a mix of Gyrum officials and some Celestian envoys. Jake exhaled deeply. Let's keep it calm. No sudden moves, no shouting matches. Serafina, this is your show, but we've got your back. She nodded, a faint smile of gratitude crossing her face. I trust you both. Together, we will make them see the truth. The airlock hissed open, and a group of uniformed officials stood waiting on the docking platform. Among them was a tall Celestian envoy with silver hair and piercing eyes, his expression unreadable. Serafina, the envoy said, stepping forward. His tone was formal, bordering on cold. You have caused quite a stir. Jake stepped beside her, his stance protective. If you're here to accuse us, save it. This was an accident, and we've done everything to make it right. The envoy's sharp gaze shifted to Jake. And who are you to speak for her? I'm the guy who made sure she got here safely, Jake retorted. We didn't ask for this situation, but we handled it the best we could. Serafina raised a hand, her voice calm but firm. Enough. There is no need for hostility. I am here willingly, and I will explain everything. The Celestian envoy hesitated, then nodded. Very well. We shall hear your account. They were led into a stark meeting chamber within the terminal. The officials took their seats around a long table, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Serafina stood at the center, flanked by Jake and Marcus. Tell us what happened, one of the Gyrum officials demanded. Serafina began, her voice steady. During my travels, I was mistakenly placed aboard this ship due to a logistical error. Jake and Marcus, the humans you see before you, discovered me only after departure. Upon realizing the situation, they immediately sought to ensure my safety and return me to my people. A murmur spread through the room, but the envoy raised a hand for silence. And yet, you chose to remain with them? I did, Serafina replied, because I saw in them qualities often overlooked: kindness, integrity, and a desire to understand. They treated me with respect, despite our differences, and worked tirelessly to correct what had occurred. Jake glanced at her, his throat tightening. We just did what anyone decent would do, he added. We didn't want her to get hurt or caught up in some mess. Marcus nodded. We're not heroes or anything, just two guys trying to do the right thing. The Celestian envoy studied them for a long moment before speaking. Your actions, though unconventional, align with the values we hold dear. Serafina's account speaks to your sincerity. One of the Gyrum officials cleared his throat. It seems this was indeed a misunderstanding. We will not pursue charges, provided there are no further complications. Relief washed over Jake and Marcus, but Serafina's focus remained on the envoy. And my people? She asked. They will be informed of your safe return, the envoy assured her. Your actions here have demonstrated a willingness to bridge differences. It is commendable. As the meeting concluded, Serafina turned to Jake and Marcus, her expression softening. You have shown me the strength and beauty of your humanity. I will always be grateful. Jake grinned. We couldn't have done it without you, Serafina. Marcus smirked, nudging Jake. Speak for yourself. I handled the tech. You just played the charming captain. Serafina laughed lightly, the sound filling the room with warmth. Together, we achieved what none of us could alone. As they walked back to the ship, Jake looked over his shoulder at the departing officials. So, what now? Serafina paused, her wings catching the light. Now we part ways for now, but our paths will cross again. Of that, I am certain. Jake held out his hand, and Serafina took it, her grip firm yet gentle. Until then, he said. Marcus gave her a salute, grinning. Take care, Angel. As Serafina departed, Jake and Marcus stood by the ship, watching her fade into the crowd. Their journey together had come to an end, but the connection they had formed would linger, a reminder of what they had accomplished against all odds.